Good morning, this is Jim Nailon, liturgical guitarist, and this will be the first of the Easter arrangements. It's, March 9th, so time to start getting ready for Easter morning. This song is The Strife Is Over, or O'er, by Giovanni de Palestrina, the greatest Catholic composer of all time, I think. And I made a few changes to it this morning to make it a little easier. I would suggest doing this one maybe as a preparation of gifts, and then you can use the guitar version as a fill after if there's any time between the end of the collection and the start of the Mass. So anyway, and just as a side, everybody wants to sing Jesus Christ is Risen Today is the opening song on Easter, so go with that one if you want. And I've never arranged this before, but the intro, if you play it in G, and then capo it up a couple frets, that puts your top note about a C sharp, which is a good range for singing. So you do just in your G chord, and then C, back to the G, and then C, and then G, and then that little D7 kind of thing. So you give them an intro like. Jesus Christ, and you're off and running. With a capo would be a little higher. Anyway, to the Strife Is O'er. Okay, so the first page, here's what it starts out like sounding. That would be the opening. Then the first is measure 8, second line. So the changes that I've made there in measure 10 from the earlier arrangement back in 2004 when I arranged this, I was kind of rushing through it, and I was just following the harmonies in the hymn book. And in measure 10 I had a B minor, A minor, E minor, and I always found that clunky over the years when I would try and play it. I just decided to go with an easier change here, just playing down the B to G run to the D. So coming off the C, and then measure 10, and then to the D, and I wrote that D out in the notes to the, if you look in the notes below the sheet music or above it, on the score exchange, I write little annotations about my arrangements, and on this one I mentioned that I tried as much as possible to avoid the thumb for those people that are purists. So this is kind of an awkward fingering, but if you're a purist and don't want to use your thumb, then that's a way to do it. Or if you have a small hand. I have a big hand, so I go around and grab it with the bass with the thumb. Anyway, let's see let's start at measure 8. So you got the G chord, and then it shows a squiggly line in the music. That means to strum it. Usually if it's a 5-note strum, I will try and brush 2 of them with my thumb, and then get the other 3 with the fingers and just kind of roll it. ones I really tend to give us a real strum are the last two measures of the first line and the last two measures of the probably the third line and the fourth line on that first page, where you have the DG, the so anyway, let's see, I forget where I'm at here. I think most of that's pretty straightforward. So I cleaned up measure 10. I also changed measures 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Measure 14 and 15. The last two measures of that second line. It used to go G, then A minor. And I just cleaned that up again to fewer notes. And I reversed the order of those last two bass notes. Instead of it used to go A to D, but now it goes D to A. So, and I think that's the only time in the piece that the bass notes don't go up the guitar. They go down, backwards. So. Gives you a nice movement to the next chord. And then the same thing there in measure 18 is in measure 10. G, and then move your little finger over. And then the D, the brush D. Then measure 23. That's a hammer-on, if you haven't done that before. A double hammer-on. I play these three fingers on the second, third, and fourth strings, and my thumb is on the sixth string, and then I hammer on here with my first and second fingers at the same time. So, and if you want to get some vibrato in there, you can kind of lock the guitar down here and bend on. If you have a classical guitar, this won't work, but on a steel string it will. What you're doing, you're actually bending the neck, kind of like a wah-wah bar on an electric guitar does that for you, but I just learned that reverb online this year, so it's pretty cool. Anyway, then the next page, which is my favorite of the two pages. Not too many changes on this. What I did, I took out a few eighth notes. So like measure 30 at the top, used to go had that extra drone note in there. So this is my typical style. Lots of eighth notes, drone notes, moving basses, things like that. So I leave that third eighth note on the upbeat off. So and then that measure's the same, except for I leave out this eighth note. It's just and there's a change there on the fingering in the next to the last measure on the first line. The D, let's see, I've written that with a second finger here. So on the way up you're playing this A here with your third finger, and then on the way down from that D, you change to the D7 with the C sharp or the C, and then bring your second finger over to play that A halfway through the measure again, or at the end, and that puts you in position for playing the G chord, which I changed the fingering so it has a third finger in the bass, which is more normal. And I changed the fingering on the F sharp there in the bass to the second finger. And then the E minor, I changed the fingering to the second and third. Now we're in measure 35. Measure 36 I didn't change. That's my favorite measure of the piece. And I didn't change that. But so a little, let's just go through that and we'll get that far. So from the top it would be retard there. That's why that in measure 35, 37, the D chord, the last note is an A. That's kind of awkward to get from there to the G. Not too bad, you can just get these fingers. But I pause on that A. I kind of make that measure 35, 36, 37 sort of a moment. Back into it. So back there, the last measure in the second line, I had something different before. I think I went, what did I do? I played, just for variation I did, instead of the, which is prettier, I did just to vary it. But you know, I would stay with the prettier one. Do it the same way. It's good enough. So the last measure C in that line. Then measure 40 goes down. And again, drop out the extra eighth note there, right there, and then the D. And I changed that measure 41. Before it used to go, and I changed it, made it a little easier to play. And then did I change that? No, that. Okay, so we're at the last two measures of the third line on the second page. Be measures 43 and 4. That G chord I did change. I made it so it's just roots and fifths. I took the third out. So you're playing the D here with your third finger. So the D, the measure before that. And then you got to do a little crossover move here. That's kind of tricky. Because you're playing with everything but the first finger, so I let the first finger get hold those, the bass run comes down there in that last measure of the third line, D, then the B, and then, but you have to have your third finger here for measure 45 and 46 to get that hammer on. So you got to do like a little karaoke crossover move here. Bring the third finger up to hit that G like normal. Measure 45, 46. So, anyway, I hope that's helpful. That should do it. Happy Easter.